Hi, Tony. Lex Tan from Ringside Heat, News Talk Saga 960 AM. So, again, congratulations on an amazing show, an amazing weekend of shows here in Toronto. And thank you very much for doubling down on Canada. I'm sure that everybody here, the wrestling fans, are just thankful for that, honestly. So, I would like to ask you, what is your biggest victory and success this weekend? I know it's very preliminary right now, but what is your biggest victory and success this weekend? What lessons have you learned from the first Forbidden Door leading up to today?
Well, I think breaking our biggest gate in the history of the company was a huge milestone. And so that when we walked in the door, that was pretty exciting. And having one of the three biggest live gates in the history of Canada, that was a cool historical milestone. We were over $1.2 million, which I thought was very cool. And I think we've broke the Double or Nothing record from last year, and last year Forbidden Door, I think we're both in that ballpark, but I think last year was also over $1.2 million, and we did a little bit more than that this year. So I thought that was pretty cool. And to be in the historical echelon of the all-time top shows, I was like, well, that's pretty cool. And the crowd was so strong last night, and we even bigger tonight, and the energy felt so good from the start of the show up and down. I thought it was one of our best nights. The energy of the crowd helped, and the wrestlers were amazing. The matches were amazing. I thought both companies brought their very best, and so I really was very proud. Some of the injuries were unfortunate, but everybody, I believe, long term is going to be okay, where it won't affect like long term quality of life. It might affect like when people get back in the ring next, but I believe everybody hopefully will be okay from this. And it was one of the best wrestling shows I've ever been a part of, so I'm very proud. It did more buys than last year's show. It's up from Forbidden Door last year. I think it's up from Double or Nothing, which was a very good number. And so we were up from our last show and up from last year's show. So really strong domestic and international buys, looking really good. So really, really proud of that. Last year's Forbidden Door was a massive success for both companies. And I think this year also massive success. So I'm really proud of that. And I think going into All In, which is one of the biggest shows in the history of the sport, with the kind of momentum we've got in recent weeks from this amazing pay-per-view tonight, the debut of Collision, these last two episodes have been great, and I think we can keep doing great episodes there. There have been some of our best episodes of Dynamite in recent weeks, a few really strong episodes over the last several weeks, and I really believe we can keep it going through the summer. Like I said, with the launch of Fight Forever, it's by design. We have a lot of things happening internationally and domestically. It's a great time for the company. So, yeah, I'm proud of a lot of things. Thanks for asking to give me a chance to talk about all the great things happening in AEW. Appreciate it. Is there anything else I can answer for you while you're here?
Well, the second part was about lessons that you learned.
Great. Okay. That's a great question. Like Brian said, some things are like freak accident things that you can't control. I wish, nobody got hurt coming out of the matches and everybody would be okay. And but it's a hard hitting sport, and going into it, that's a big part of it. So, you can't really beat yourself up about that. I was really proud of the show. I thought it's one of the best things we've ever done. Top to bottom, I just thought it was a great card. I really enjoyed MJF versus Tanahashi as the opening match. I thought Punk versus, I can break the whole card down, but I think it was great. Punk Kojima was tremendous and really a great match. And the crowd was tremendous for that match. And I really thought they brought it. And I thought the four-way match for the International Championship was great. Orange Cassidy, like Brian said, he's on a great roll. Shibata 1 year ago arrived here, and it was a great moment at last year's Forbidden Door. And then again, full circle moments like we talked about with Toni Storm and where she's come from last year's show. Look at Orange Cassidy and Shibata, now both great champions in wrestling, but they were fighting it out for that international title that got established last year. Look how far that title's risen in the world of wrestling. And then to have Zack Sabre Jr. back at Forbidden Door fighting for that title, and Daniel Garcia, whose story, whether I'm in Huntsville, Alabama, or Toronto, Ontario, at a house show or one of the great pay-per-views, people tell him he's a wrestler. And I get that chant everywhere he goes, and people care about that story and they believe in him. And so you had three great champions plus somebody the crowd really believes in. So I thought that match really connected and was special. And then Jungle Boy and Sonata had an excellent match. Jungle Boy this weekend had a couple really excellent matches with the stars in New Japan, and is at a couple great world title matches just in the past month. And then look what happened after the match. That's clearly taken an emotional toll, but it was a great moment, I thought, with Jungle Boy and Hook. Obviously, really gets people going, and I think the crowd really bet on that and got very excited and interested about that, and they really like Hook. Hook's a very popular wrestler, and so that was, I thought, great. What an awesome 10-man tag. What a great match with the Elite and Eddie Kingston and Tomohiro Ishii who was amazing, against the BCC with Takeshita and Shota. And that's the kind of match Forbidden Door is all about. And that rivalry has been such a huge part of AEW Dynamite and AEW Rampage and our shows as we've launched this company. Really from day one, Moxley against Kenny has been a big part of the show. Moxley against the Elite. And then we talked about in that match when we got back the fans, we did Moxley and the Eddie against the Young Bucks on Double or Nothing 21. And then you saw Eddie taking the bullet from that same finish that put Mox out at Double or Nothing 21, which I thought was a cool callback. And that was actually the first pay-per-view in wrestling with all the fans back in North America. And so a lot of cool moments, whether they were calling back to last year's Forbidden Door or the beginning of AEW, just in that first half of the show. And then whether it was Tony and Willow, again, the great match. And that's what AEW versus New Japan's all about. And of course you had the incredible, I mean, we could talk for hours and hours about Kenny and Will, again, like you asked about, and what I'm proud of. I mean, that's one of the all-time great wrestling matches. And again, that's what this Forbidden Door is all about. Last year, Will had one of the great matches against Orange Cassidy for the US title. And now it's look where we've come with Orange Cassidy. Look where now Will has come, and look at Will and Kenny. And I thought their match at the Tokyo Dome was amazing. And people wondered, how can you top that? How can you go to another level after the great match at Wrestle Kingdom at the Tokyo Dome? But they've somehow managed to have that great match and do it. And I thought that was just phenomenal. And then, to have Sting and Darby, to have Chris Jericho and Suzuki and Sammy last year, they won the match together. This year, added something different. Naito, of course, has a lot of history with Chris Jericho, the Intercontinental title. And I thought that was a cool thing. Last night at Collision, the crowd reacted so positively to Naito. And I thought that was a very cool moment. And of course, very excited to have those guys wrestling again in Hamilton on Wednesday with Jericho and Sammy versus Sting and Darby. And then, of course, the main event, we talked a lot about it. It was tremendous. So Bryan Danielson and Okada, it was a dream match. The crowd was into everything from the very beginning. And it was really cool because, like Brian said, I think before they even locked up, it had that kind of energy where you knew this was something the crowd had always wanted to see. And I know I was so happy myself as soon as Final Countdown hit. The reaction was amazing. And I think, even Brian, who was ready to go out and fight, it even put a smile on his face. So I thought that was a good sign. And overall, it's been one of the really, really great, I think, weeks for the company. The launch of Collision has been so positively received. Hopefully last night's show did well, but the debut episode did really, really well. And that's really, really good for the company. And I think that's awesome too. So that is another big win for us. Thanks.